Look, you either love him or you hate him. Unless you're me, and you can kind of go either way on the guy. There's things to like and things to dislike. But either way, you have to admit that he had some significant accomplishments as President of the United States. Now, before we kick this off, I just want to say up front that Donald Trump does not have the best reputation for the truth. Some media outlets have called him the most lyingest president of all time. Bigly. But at the very same time, he is also most surely the most lied about president of all time by those same media organizations. There's so many times that you've seen stuff completely taken out of context on purpose, where you'll see him say something and it'll be reported as him saying this horrible thing. But then when you look at the entire speech in context, it doesn't seem so bad at all. Anyway, no matter what you think of him, the truth of the matter is that, yes, he was not Mr. Integrity. He embellished and bragged and said some things that were straight up untrue. But he was also not nearly as bad as he was portrayed in the media. All right. Now, going into this list of accomplishments, keep in mind that this is not a list of things that everyone will agree are positive accomplishments, but the fact of the matter is that he accomplished quite a bit in his 4-year presidency. Now, the first thing, and possibly the most controversial, is that he appointed 3 Supreme Court justices. And whether or not you agree with the choices he made, you have to admit that he stuck to his campaign promises in this regard. One of the major issues for conservative voters in 2016 when it came to whether or not they would support Donald Trump, which was a hard thing for them to do, as the Republican nominee, was whether or not he would pick constitutionalist, originalist Supreme Court justices, if given the opportunity. And to ease their minds, he put together a list of 100 of what many would call conservative-leaning judges, and said that if he were elected president, this would be the list that he would pull from when considering someone to appoint. And he did just that. All 3 of the judges that he appointed were directly from that list that he put forth during the 2016 campaign. The second set of accomplishments that I have to bring up are 4 Middle Eastern peace deals between Israel and other countries in the region. Now, some may scoff at this, and some may say these are not real accomplishments or even legitimate peace deals. I guess it all depends on how you feel about Israel as a nation state. But what you can't deny is that 4 Middle Eastern peace deals were signed all in the final year of his presidency, basically back-to-back, or in concert. Personally, I think that any sense of normalizing relations in the Middle East is something we can call a positive accomplishment. While we're on the subject of the Middle East, it has to be mentioned that the president continued to reduce forces stationed around the world, including Iraq and Afghanistan. And whether or not you agree with this strategy, I feel like less U.S. troops policing the world or in harm's way is a net positive. Period. On top of that, we had no new wars or armed conflict under this president, even though everyone was predicting his volatile personality and rhetoric would lead to World War III. Now, the next few things are highly controversial, and some may not view them as positive accomplishments at all, but they were campaign promises that he fulfilled. Almost immediately after being inaugurated, Trump passed executive orders to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal, to exit the Paris Climate Accords, and also to exit the Trans-Pacific Partnership and negotiate a fairer, more fair set of trade deals with China, and also to withdraw from NAFTA and renegotiate the terms of that agreement as well. These are all things that, for good or ill, he did follow through on. The reason I think a lot of these things are so important to bring up is because they were campaign promises that were fulfilled. Something that not a lot of presidents do after they are elected. Whether or not you support these campaign promises is kind of irrelevant. The point is that he followed through on what he laid out to his supporters. And in presidential politics, it's an insanely rare thing. I mean, it's literally become a running joke that candidates promise one thing and do something very different once they're in office. Okay. One of the final things I want to bring up. While many have criticized the president's response to COVID-19 and said he could have acted earlier, or he shouldn't have downplayed the virus to the American people, etc., etc. And that may very well be true. One thing that people forget, though, is that very early on, the president was saying we were going to have a vaccine by the end of the year. Something everyone mocked and ridiculed him for. His ignorance was obvious. That's just not how medical science works. It's going to take way longer. You can't fast track this sort of thing. A year to 18 months at the very least, they said. And lo and behold, 2 separate pharmaceutical companies have come up with apparently a very viable and reliable vaccine. Now, this was just a list of what I consider to be his most notable accomplishments as president. I'm sure there are plenty of arguments that can be made for even more, but these are the ones that stuck out to me. Some may think he is the worst president of all time, and some may think he's the best. Personally, I think he's neither. I think he's a heavily flawed, brash, rude, and often childish man who did some positive and some negative things while President of the United States. None of which I felt were authoritarian or Hitler-esque. And I know that may be seen as a radical thought, but I tell it like I see it. It is what it is. So, in conclusion, love it or hate it, the man accomplished some things in office. Now, if you made it this far, I just want to say something that I think is important. Even though I did not vote for him, it looks like Joe Biden is going to be the next president of the United States. And I personally offer my congratulations, and I wholeheartedly hope for the absolute best for the Biden administration. I want our country to do well. I want our country to succeed. I want to move forward from the pandemic, continue to move onward and upward as a nation. I want our citizens' lives to be improved, and I would never wish for our country to do badly just to prove a political point, or to make a president look bad, or to improve the chances of another candidate or political party defeating him in 4 years. Look, I don't usually talk politics on this channel. It's pretty rare. So take anything I say with a grain of salt. It's just an opinion, and I'm just a guy. But if you enjoy this sort of thing, here's what I do on this channel, on this podcast. Every day I try to pick a subject, pick a random topic that I feel like talking about, and I talk about it. And it's usually entertainment or pop culture, but every great once in a while it's something like this. Random thought that I have, or it could be something political, but it's usually not. It could be stories from my questionable youth. But if you can vibe with that, if you'd like to hear something random every single day, then please subscribe, because that's what I do here. And if you decide to subscribe, if you decide to stick around and follow or favorite the podcast or subscribe to the YouTube channel, then I will talk to you again tomorrow.